Thank you for coming to the Cal Poly Pomona Black Alumni and Friends Chapters program, Entering Politics. We're going to be discussing with two of our speakers today how they started their career in the political sphere. We have Walter Allen III and we have Tyrone Hampton. I want to definitely give a thanks to the board and the president of the Cal Poly Pomona Black Alumni Chapter, Teresa Eoff. And then I also want to thank the Office of Alumni for helping us put together this event and giving us the technology to reach you guys virtually. Let me go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Corey Gaither. I'm an alumni of Cal Poly Pomona. I spent about 10 years plus in community engagement. The latter part of those years, I've been diversifying boards and specifically government commissions and committees. I've worked with the California State Assembly, the California State Bar, and then the Los Angeles City on diversifying their commissions and trying to get more diverse candidates for those commission positions. So what I want to do now is have a quick introduction of our two speakers. So give me a minute. First, we have Vice Mayor Tyrone Hampton. Tyrone Hampton represents the 1st District of the City of Pasadena. He is a lifelong resident of Pasadena and was elected to the City Council in 2015. Mr. Hampton won his first election in 2013. He served as a board member for the Pasadena Unified School District. The Vice Mayor has established youth programs and programs for senior residents for the City of Pasadena. In addition to representing the 1st District for City Council, Tyrone serves on the following City Council committees: Economic Development and Technology, Municipal Services, and Public Safety. Tyrone currently serves as the chair of the Pasadena Center Operating Company. He also serves on the board of the Rose Bowl Operating Company and on the board of overseers for the Gamble House. After graduating John Muir High School, Tyrone obtained his bachelor's degree from Cal Poly Pomona. Walter Allen III is a council member for the city of Covina and director of the Rio Hondo Police Academy at Rio Hondo College in Whittier. Walter was elected to the Covina City Council in 1997. He served as the mayor pro tem in 1999 and was elected in 2001 for a second term as a city council member. He became a mayor pro tem for the Covina City Council in 2002 and served as a mayor for the city of Covina in 2004. Walter Allen has been appointed to state commissions by Governor Pete Wilson, Governor Gray Davis, and Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mr. Allen is a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona and is a proud member of the Cal Poly Pomona Alumni Association Board of Directors and the Cal Poly Pomona Black Alumni and Friends Board. Please welcome both our speakers today. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
And so getting into our first question, well, let me do some housekeeping real quick. When you registered, you were able to ask a question. So we gathered all those questions, and that's how we'll be doing the program today, through those questions that were asked through registration. If there is time, we will try to pull some questions from the box, but there will be opportunities after this event to contact myself or the speakers for any additional questions that you have. Also, please keep your camera on mute because we want to give everybody, speakers the time to answer those questions clearly without any interruptions. So my first question is to you, Walter, is have you always been civically engaged?
Yeah, I think I've been involved in one way or another in the community since an early age. I grew up in East Oakland, California. Was very much involved as a kid in the Boys Club, which was very involved in the community, as well as the Oakland Junior Achievement and also the Civil Air Patrol. And those 3 organizations, I was involved in those organizations very early. You know, Boys Club, you had to be a member. You had to be 6 years old to be a member, but around 14 and 15, I was very much involved in community activities and civically involved, and I haven't stopped, obviously. So,
And then to Mr. Hampton, have you always been civically engaged?
So to answer that question, actually, by the way, thank you for having me. It's always good to be back at Cal Poly Pomona. No, actually, I was not civically engaged, but my father did spend a lot of time with the NAACP. My father also started the Black Business Association. My father's also a property owner in the city of Pasadena and had plenty of block parties for people in the neighborhood. So he's always about building neighborhoods and building people together. So I think I just got my civic engagement by way of growing up around my dad and just seeing how he got engaged. But to be honest with you, no, I wasn't civically engaged. I never thought I'd be in the position that I'm in today.
Interesting. So, Councilman Allen, I'm going to say, what pushed you into getting into politics? What was the political climate like? Was there a local issue that motivated you? Could you give us some information on what really pushed you into your positions that you've held?
well, I can tell you this. So the only other positions I held as I was growing up, I was senior class vice president in high school. And then when I came to Cal Poly, I was kind of like talked into running for ASI president, and I was elected in 1973. But you know what? After that experience, I said, I don't want to have anything to do with politics. I'm done. And it would be several years later that I was the special agent in charge of the Los Angeles office for the Department of Justice Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. And I live in Covina. I was living in Covina at the time. And the police chief asked me to do a presentation on the methamphetamine problem, which was quite a problem with meth labs, the meth lab problem throughout California. And Los Angeles had one of the highest meth lab problems. So naturally, I was involved in all of that. And I did a presentation to the city council. And about 3 days later, I got a call from a few members of the city council, and they asked me, are you a resident of Covina? Are you in the county area of Covina or in the city area? I said, I'm in the city area. Well, we want you to run for city council. I said, I'm not interested. And I said I wasn't interested. Then the police chief contacted me. He said, Walt, you should really consider this because you would be a great asset. I said, I'm not interested. I'm not a politician. So about a year later, just before to pull papers, at the last minute, I was asked a final time, and I decided, what the heck, at a whim, I'm gonna do this. So I decided to run, and the rest is history.
Same question to the vice mayor. What was the motivation for you to get into politics? Was there an issue that drove you to do it?
So I'm a believer in Christ, and so I believe in divine intervention. I don't think that God is going to call me on my cell phone and tell me what to do or text me, but through other people, he would do that. And so I happen to travel all over the world, and everywhere I went, people always ask me, was I a dignitary? Did I represent people? And if I didn't, I should get involved. And we'd always laugh about it. And one day I was having I've always contributed because I know that campaigns cost money. So as a business owner, I'm a business owner in town. I've always contributed to local politicians and people that I knew, and people that have introduced me to people to say, hey, you should probably support this candidate. He's really about, talking about, or she's really about talking about, representing people and talking to people. And so, with that being said, I was in Japan. With all that being said, I was in Japan, and we were at I had a party. The party wasn't in Japan. The party was in Pasadena. And it was just a celebration party for a local Congress member. and I hosted it. And so all my friends that came to the party, they were like, man, you should really run. You should really do this. And I said, no, I would not do that. And about a month later, me and my wife were in Japan, and I couldn't get in contact with anybody. I was trying to call my mom. I was trying to call all my family members. And it was so interesting. We were out, got off the plane, just kind of mingled around Tokyo, and a lady came out and she said, oh, you must be a dignitary. Please come into my place. And I was like, no. And then we left. And I got a phone call as I was trying to call everybody else. It was from one of my friends. And it was interesting because no one else could get in contact with me. I'm looking down at my phone because I'm looking like, oh, okay. Like as I'm actually there in the place right now. And he says, hey, you should run for city council, or you should run for school board. Remember that night that we had that conversation about you running? And I said, this is really interesting that you're calling me, because I've been trying to call people. So if you can get in contact with my mom, please do. And I said, you know what, let me think about that. I'm not really interested, but I just, he was super animated and super excited about it. And of course, he's like, I'm gonna tell your dad and tell your mom and let them know what they think and ask your wife what she thinks. And she seemed to be receptive of it as well. And I said, well, you know what? I wasn't at the time. I was like, not receptive. I was not listening. I wasn't, lining up the T or the stars. I wasn't doing any of that. And he calls me back, and I asked him for more information. He calls me back and he said, so if you ran for city council, it probably cost you about $80,000 to $100,000 to run. If you ran for school board, nobody wants to be a school board member, is what he said. Exactly like that. I remember it. And he said, and I said, what do you mean by that? I was like, why would nobody want to be a school board member? He's like, they take bullets, is what he's saying. And so I said, well, what would, he told me what the school board consisted of, and he said it probably wouldn't be a very expensive campaign. And what really dawned on me wasn't the fact that it was not an expensive campaign, or I really want to run for something. It was, I just got off the plane. A lady asked me, was I a dignitary? And then he told me that the schools I would represent was Cleveland, Washington, and John Muir High School. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my mom, and myself went to all those schools. And I thought, well, until someone better decides to jump in, who better to represent schools that, and in a community that I know very well and have been fifth generation Pasadenian, who better to represent those schools? And so I just started doing my research and figuring out I didn't have any kids at the time. I just had been supporting schools in different ways. I'm a floor covering contractor, so I'd always be in the schools donating things. I'd walk in. My dad used to do this all the time. He'd walk in my classrooms and he'd be like, this classroom is not nice. We got to paint it. And then he would do that for all the classrooms, whatever school I was at. He would come in, he would sprucing up the classrooms, make sure the teachers had nice rugs, redo the flooring if need be. So I think just that civic engagement, and then also just how all the stars align, is what got me involved in divine intervention, like I said. Sorry that was a long-winded answer, but that's exactly how I got involved, and that's why I decided to run. And when I ran, and I do want to say this for anybody who's thinking about running, don't be discouraged. In all of my campaigns, I was outspent 8-1. And when I say divine intervention, I ran in my first election, I ran with a teacher, and I had no experience in education. And so I'll just say that, God had a plan for me, and I just followed what I believed was right. And I just worked really hard at it. And I didn't even have, they had these called a PDI account, and it tells you who all the voters are. I didn't even have that information. I literally just went out and knocked on people's doors, and they gave me a map. And I knocked on every household's door, and I almost lost my first election by 8 votes. But luckily, we had a runoff. And in the runoff, I turned the vote count around significantly, because a couple political consultants reached out to me. And when I was speaking at the forums that we'd have, which were kind of like debates, nothing like the presidential debates, by the way, nothing like that at all. but those would be kind of like debates. When I spoke at them, my political consultant called me up and he said, he's like, I consult for a lot of people, but I actually believe what you're saying. And I believe that you believe you're going to be able to make that change. So, hope that all the tea leaves line up for you, and, don't wait for anybody to tell you when it's your time to run. You just do what you want to do. And that's with life. Whatever you want to do in life, don't wait for anybody else. Don't wait for anybody's approval. So that's my answer. I'm so sorry that was long.
Oh, no, thank you for the information. And I wanted to follow up with Council Member Allen. You and Vice Mayor Hampton share a common theme in your story, the reluctance to run. Someone asked you and you said no. What was the purpose or what were the ideas that you had that were keeping you from saying yes? And when you finally did get your office, did you see those come to fruition, or maybe it was something that once you got into position, you saw that it's not that bad? I was overreacting to that hesitation of actually going out and running.
Well, I think from my perspective, it's not that I didn't have high regard for people in the political arena. It's just I didn't see myself being a politician. But once I decided to do it, and this is for the people that are viewing this tonight, once you make that decision, you have to be all in. You can't be half in. You can't be 1/4 of the way in, not 3/4 of the way in. You got to be 100% in. And when I finally made the decision to do it, my attitude was, okay, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to come in last. I'm going to make a showing. I may not get elected, but I'm actually going to try hard to get elected. So then I had some folks that had, I had some political leaders that knew me and offered a hand, and that's the other aspect. You just can't run. You need help. You need lots of help. You need money. You need campaign expertise, and there's different ways of getting it. If we get to that point where we can talk about actually some of the important aspects of running a campaign, we can talk about that. But you have to be all in. So once I made a decision to run, and there were a lot of candidates that ran when I ran. The objective was to set myself apart with the other candidates. I had to prove to the community that I would be in front of what I offered that really the other candidates couldn't offer. So, and what I did when I ran, law enforcement, public safety was a big deal in the 90s. So what I was in the profession, I was a sworn peace officer and a special agent, and I used that as a cornerstone. I used my rally point was ensuring that we maintain the quality of life in the city, and public safety for any city is a cornerstone for any city to successfully function. You got to have good public safety. So I ran on that. That was the theme I used. So a lot more details into it, but I have to tell you a funny story, because I looked at the questions, and the question was, did race play a role in my campaign? If you don't mind me jumping ahead, Corey.
Yeah, please.
So what happened, the mayor, who was the one that was helping me because he'd been involved in politics a while, he calls me after we're moving along. He says, Walt, we're going to be helping you put together some brochures. And at that time, Covina was like predominantly white. It had to be about 80% white. He says, I got to ask you this personal question. Do you want your picture on your brochure? And I said, heck yeah. I said, heck yeah. Well, I thought about that. And 2 days later, I called him. I said, no, don't put my picture on the brochure. So any rate, to make a long story short, no one knew what I looked like. Probably the only one that knew what I looked like, aside the people that helped me get elected, was the Tribune newspaper, because they take a picture of all the candidates, but they don't show that picture. And this particular time, they didn't show a photograph until after the election was over. So any rate, maybe there was some surprise people. I don't know. I can't attest to that. But I ran on what I would bring to the table, not based upon color, but the skill set and the vision I had for the city. That's what I ran on. Now, the elections I've had ever since then, my face is a big face on the brochure, and we don't hide anything. But in a humorous way, I think it might have been a good thing for this first election not to show my face. It actually set a cornerstone. It set a foundation for the rest of my time on the city council. So sorry to be long-winded, but I jumped into a question. I hope you didn't mind me jumping to that
Absolutely.
question.
This is a conversation, so feel free. And I love that story, and I want Vice Mayor Hampton to jump on that and also talk about, does race play a role in your campaign, being that you're from a city, Pasadena, that's diverse, but what's the demographic of District 1? What does that look like? Does that impact the way that you campaign?
So in Pasadena, in the district that I represent, we're pretty evenly represented. African-American population in my district is probably about 23%. And then Caucasian is about probably 38, and the rest Latino. But throughout the city's probably about 52, I believe it's 52% now, Latino residents. And of course, we'll see how that ends up after the census is all said and done. But it's funny when you said did race and play a role in the campaign. So very interesting. And I was thinking about this because when I read the question, I was like, did anybody treat me unfairly, or did anybody treat me weird because I was Black or anything like that? Do I remember that? And I actually do remember an incident when I actually walked up to this lady's home, beautiful home, knock on her door. And I said, most of the time people think you're selling something, or that you're trying to sell something. And I guess technically you kind of are. You're trying to sell them on you. I was telling her, I'm not selling vacuums. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. No offense to anybody who's a Jehovah's Witness that's on the line right now. And that's what I told her. And she came to the door and she looked at me and she said, I know who you are. And she gave me 2 thumbs down like it was the funniest thing. I mean, it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever encountered, because no one's ever just giving me 2 thumbs down. And I was like, oh, why was that? I mean, but I kind of got the vibe, and her next door neighbor told me kind of a little bit more about why. But my campaign was a little different. I actually, because I'm young, I'm African-American, I actually put my face on all of my yard signs. So that when people put up a yard sign of me, and me and my nephew made my first yard signs, we were making posters. And taping those posters, or actually spray gluing those posters on the back of cardboard, which was really, but they look really nice. I mean, most people were like, man, you have full color, because I was making posters. And so I would spray them on the back of cardboard that was just left over from the things that we would do at the store. And so it was me and a couple of my guys who worked for me who were making my yard signs together. As Walt says, it does take a village and a lot of people and a lot of support. But the interesting thing is, when I was knocking on doors, it was just me. I mean, I was chased down by dogs, you name it. But I had my picture on yard signs typically so that when I knocked on someone's door, they were not caught off guard by this young African-American man knocking on the door. And the other thing that I did was kind of have a little bit of, I have a marketing background. So I want to say I kind of have a little bit of a marketing background. I have more of a marketing background than I have been actively in agriculture, right? So I have a marketing background. So every day I woke up, I knock on doors, I send thank you letters, you name it, just connecting with people however I could. And I looked exactly like my yard sign. I had a blue shirt on and a red tie, and some days I would wear a white shirt and a red tie, and I had a blue jacket on my yard sign. And every day I looked just like that. So that when people would open up the door, like, oh, I know who you are. You're the guy on the yard sign. You're the guy on that poster that's on that building or something like that. That's who you are. And so that's how I started off my campaign. And then I would walk down the street and people would be like, honk their horn, or they'd be cheering me on because they recognized who I was based on the yard signs that were out of the neighborhood. So, but other than the 2 thumbs down, and other than putting my picture on there, and I did that purposely because I am young and I'm African American. I am knocking on someone's door. That was probably, I would say, that was probably the most racist thing that's happened to me while I was campaigning. But so now thinking subconsciously, why did I put my picture on the doors? Why did I put my pictures on the yard sign when a lot of people do not do that? And a lot of people, I started thinking about, was really the reason why I did it is because I'm young, I'm African American, I'm knocking on someone's door. And the last thing I want is someone to call the police on me because they see me walking down the street. And so that's about the extent.
I have to add a funny story. First of all, for the viewers, if you're going to run in a local election, you got to walk precincts. There's good and bad about it. I actually have a good time, but you do run into some issues sometimes. Funny story, just my last race in March, I walked up to a woman's door and she said, get off my porch. And I was trying to explain to her, I was your mayor last year and I'm running for city council. She says, honey, call 911. And she was calling the police on me. I said, and I told her, I says, I'll get off your porch, but when the police get here, I don't think they're gonna arrest me. So at any rate, you have to walk precincts. That's really a major part of running for local government. You have to walk precincts, and you have to. And by the way, signs in your instance, Tyrone, was a great thing to have your picture on it. But I tell people, don't rely on street signs or vehicle wraps or certain things. You're wasting your money. Yard signs, to me in my city, tells your supporters that you're out there and you're campaigning. But it's you walking precincts that really gets the votes. And it's now it's electronic media that you have to use, as well as targeting information, your walk sheets that are now electronic. Those are some features you have to use when you run in a local election, because without that, things are so sophisticated now that you're not going to do well just by throwing yard signs up. It's a lot more than that. But Tyrone, that was a clever idea of wearing the same outfit that's on your sign. Great idea. If I ever decide to do this a 6th time, I might consider that.
That is a great idea. And thank you both for those stories, because I think it helps the participants understand that no matter where they live, the demographic background of the constituent, they can always run and possibly win. It does not a hindrance. You get out there, you campaign, you go meet the people, you show your face, you give them your ideas and let them make the decisions and let the chips fall where they may. So thank you for both those stories. The next question that we'll go on to is, why is it important to participate in local government? What are the responsibilities of your role? I think a lot of people, when they think of government, they think of federal government, the big stuff, what can be done. But I want people to really understand that local government has a responsibility too in the way they enact those laws and can protect you from those laws. So could you please speak on the responsibilities that you have, and what are some of the things that are within your power as a council member, a mayor, to do on an executive and legislative level? I'll give that to, could you start us off, Council Member Allen?
We're a general law city, so our city council, we have 5 city council members on our city council, and we're a general law city, which means that we hire a city manager to oversee the day-to-day operations. The council mainly deals with all policy issues, and we keep a watchful eye on, of course, the city budget. But one of the main things is that our council does is the quality of life issues for our city are very important. Public safety, that's one of my fortes. That's extremely important, because when public safety is not run adequately and there's inadequate community policing, then you start having some problems. So public safety not only deals with law enforcement, it deals with fire services and disaster preparedness, water, power, streets, infrastructure, administrative operations of the city, public works. I mean, the list just goes on and on. As a council, we are not only a voice for the citizens in our city, but we're a voice for our citizens at the regional level, the state level, and the national level. And it's very important that we stay in tune with all of those pieces, because they can indirectly have a negative impact on our city, or in a lot of instances, a positive impact in terms of federal grants and dollars that we can leverage at the county, state, and federal level to help improve services or upgrade services in our city. So that's just a real quick down and dirty overview. But because we're a general law city, what we've done in our city, we rotate the mayor's position and the vice mayor's position every year. So if you get elected, there's a good chance that you're going to rotate it into the position of mayor. And we like that, because you can't get a big ego being the mayor, because your fellow colleagues will remember it when you rotate out. So you have to have a very collegial environment with the city council. And if the city council is working well, it's like Stephen Covey's The Speed of Trust, the book he wrote, The Speed of Trust. When there's trust, everything moves along quite rapidly. And one of the great things about local government is that you see things that you create as a council and as a city with the input from the citizens. You see these things created at the blink of an eye. I mean, you see your park, we've created parks, housing, a great rail station for Metrolink. A lot of different projects move along if you have a council that works together. If you have that trust with not only amongst the council members and the employees in the city, but if you have the trust with the citizens of the city, you have a good working local government. So that's just a quick down and dirty overview, but it's very important. We're not divided in districts in our city, which we're a city of 50,000. The majority of our population ethnically is Hispanic now, but people in a city want the city to be safe. They want their children to be safe. They want their schools to perform properly. And they want adequate recreational services for the community. And when they come home from work all day, they want the highest quality of life possible. And that's one of your objectives of a city council.
And Vice Mayor Tyrone Hampton, could you also share with us some of the executive decisions or legal or legislation that your city has pushed forward, and what are the responsibilities in your role that you hold?
So, just to piggyback on Mr. Allen's comments, it's pretty much the same. The only difference in Pasadena is we have 8 city council members, which is not typical for any other city in the United States to have an even now. We do have districts. Our mayor is elected at large. Pasadena has, as we talking about race, Pasadena has a very interesting reality when it comes to race. And I don't know if, and I'm not conspiracy theory or anything like that, but I don't know if the reason why they put the 8th member on the council was to disenfranchise minority communities, because there are 3 districts in the city that are pretty much minority districts, 1, 3, and 5. And with an even amount of those 3 districts could end up not getting things that are equitable for their districts. Luckily, since I've been on the city council, I haven't seen anything like that happen. I've got some very strong colleagues that fight vigorously and very hard for their residents as well as I. But the main thing about voting in local elections, a lot of people always think of federal and state, and mainly federal. Not really. I mean, I bet you if you ask somebody who's your state representative, they'd be like, "What?" They'd be like,
Very true.
What are you talking about? Like who's the governor? They'd be like, who? Like right now they may know who the governor is just because of everything going on, but they definitely know who our health director is they definitely know that. One thing about the city of Pasadena, and I don't know if this is true for Covina, we have our own water and power department. I don't know.
We have our own water,
we also have
we do not have our own power.
Okay. And we also are one of 3 cities in our region that have their own health department. Long Beach, Pasadena, and the County of Los Angeles are only 3 health departments. So we set apart from some of the other cities in our region because we have our own power department. We have our own power and water, as well as our own health department. So you have an issue in your neighborhood and you don't know exactly what's going on, you need to get in contact with someone, maybe speed bump. Maybe you need speed bumps. Maybe someone's speeding in your neighborhood. Maybe there's a pothole in your street. You could get in contact with your local representative. If you call President Trump, if you call Biden, whoever the president will be next, they ain't gonna answer your phone call, and they're not calling. Your quality of life is you're one in millions. You're one in millions to them. So, what happens locally is extremely important. Not only what happens locally in your local economy, but also in your school district, right? Because if you have your own school district, you actually have opportunity to talk to your school board. If your city runs a school, some cities in California, the school board and the city, if your city, you could talk about where you want to allocate dollars. You could advocate for affordable housing. You could advocate for police reform locally. Advocating for it at a national level is a lot harder than it is advocating for it locally. And if you change that locally, right, when you're advocating for it on a national level, you could point to place change it locally. Like in Pasadena, we did this. In Doherty, we did this. In Glendale, we've done this. And then collectively, because all those cities have done that, when you present it statewide and the state does it, then we're now looked at national. So everything is really local. All politics are local. So hopefully that answered the question. But
Yeah,
Councilmember Allen did a fantastic job at answering that question.
well, I was going to say this. One of the good things is uh, uh, the Pasadena and Covina and over 400 other cities are members of the League of California Cities, and they have committees that deal with everything from housing to public safety to taxation and revenue issues. Uh, and we have a voice. We have the cities have a very powerful voice uh, at the state legislature, where we can bring to bear up quite a bit of power on issues that the legislature may come down with. They may have bills that we can confront them on that do harm, that could do potential harm to our cities. One of the other things I want to mention, the vice mayor obviously has a great personality, and I'm not saying that I have a great personality, but what I'm saying, people really look at what you can bring to the table. They don't, I mean, there's a 3%, less than 3% Black population. So in my city, it's not about race, it's what you can bring to the table. Are you fixing my potholes? Are you fixing that, that street light at the corner of such and such, intersection of such and such, it's turning red pretty quickly. And there's a camera there, and you need to have that yellow longer. I mean, we get the vice mayor and I get dozens of calls every week of one kind or another about speed bumps, potholes. Why hasn't my street been paved? My trash is not getting picked up on time, or there's a barking dog. I mean, we get these calls. You go to the grocery store, you go get your car washed in your city and whatever. People will walk up to you. So our job, my job is a part-time job as a council member, right, but I'm 24/7 because people are gonna call you sometimes in the middle of the night for help, or hit you in the grocery store for how come you guys are doing this or doing that. So you are completely immersed in local city government as an elected official, because as Tyrone said, local government politics is absolutely local. Action is. That's why I enjoy working at the local level and have no interest of being at the state or federal level.
And one of the questions that came in when people were registering was, what are some of the things that you can do in your position or local government can do to protect elections?
Well,
yeah, thank you.
I was going to say, if you don't mind me chiming in, we have a great city clerk in our office, and we have a great relation with the county registrar's office. And it's very important for us to work directly with them to make sure that, first of all, we have adequate voting locations and that the mail-in voting process is going without a hitch. I think working locally with the county registrar's office, and also another added attraction is that in terms of making sure elected officials are doing the right thing whether they're candidates or they're in office, we have what's called the Fair Political Practices Commission, the FPPC, and they regulate lots of rules and regulations on everything from candidate elections and candidate raising of dollars for your campaign. And Tyrone, I know you can attest to this. That doggone book, the election book, in terms of the FPPC book, is about this thick now. You actually have to go. I had to go to a class with my campaign treasurer and myself to the FPPC a lecture on what we have to do now. It's gotten so complex. So if you're going to run for office, do all your homework, because there's a lot of things you have to do. And one of the most critical parts of it is to get someone that knows something about numbers. If you want to be a treasurer and a candidate, it's impossible. There are so many rules and regulations to running for office. So once you make a decision to jump into the water, make sure that you probably get a good consultant on board with you if you're going to run in a larger city. I didn't need a consultant. I pretty much knew what I needed to do. But you need to have someone that can serve as an adequate treasurer, because the money in a campaign operation will get you in trouble if you don't do the right thing. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
So as Councilmember Allen mentioned, we too have a city clerk in the city of Pasadena. And recently, this will be actually our first election that has been commandeered, I'll say, is a nice terminology, by the state. All of our local elections used to be local elections, and they would be a separate election that would go out, and the only thing that would be an election are things that were generally Pasadena-centric only. Every once in a while, the county may throw something on one of our elections, but the state has actually commandeered all elections, and our city clerk, as well as the county and the county registrar, the county of Los Angeles, actually manage all of the elections for the state of California. When the state came in and changed elections, so when I first ran for office, and Councilmember Allen probably can speak on how expensive it is to run a campaign. When the state came in and took over the elections, basically they put us on the same cycle as the presidential election and the gubernatorial election, which means that now in your local elections, you have to compete, even though that you're not running against anyone in those positions. You have to compete with their mail. And you have to compete with their outreach, with their robocalls, with their newspaper ads. So it's made it really expensive for local elections, and it's made it really expensive for people who decide that they just want to get into the race. And I actually was I advocated against it, and I thought the city of Pasadena should have actually sued the state personally, because I know that it was going to increase the cost of elections, which means that individuals like myself, who my first election, I put $1,000 in, and I said, I'm going to run for it. And I worked extremely hard, as Councilmember Allen talked about how he was going to make a good showing out of it. And when he came in 8 votes shy of winning, I said, wow, this is crazy that I'm even in the runoff based on what I've spent, in comparison to my opponent, who spent like $56,000. And so I decided to put a little bit more money into it, and put my own money into it, my own time into it. And I ran my first election off of about $13,000, and he put $80,000 into his campaign. My last city council race, my opponent spent about $92,000, and I spent about 21. In actual dollars, I actually spent about $18,000. Some of the contributions I received were not monetary, so they were like donations of supplies and materials. So with that being said, now elections, because we are now having to compete with the presidential election, we now have to compete with every proposition that is on the ballot. Our mayoral election, the last city council election prior to, we have council members who spent upwards of $200,000 on their city elections. And I have to remind everybody here, just as Councilmember Allen mentioned, for me, it's not even part-time. It's actually just a voluntary role, and we actually get paid a stipend. And that stipend is $300, Actually, let me take that back. It's like $1,200 a month. And I drive a pickup truck, and that's like the gas for my pickup truck. So, so it's not it's really a labor of love, and it's really a passion. And I could definitely see every time that Councilmember Allen answers a question, you could tell that he has a passion. And I mean, running 6 times, you don't run 6 times to not really care. And so it's really something that you've got to have in your heart, and you say, you know what, I want to make a change for the people in my community. One of the biggest reasons why I ran is, once again, I'll go back to divine intervention. But the other thing that stepped up and was that I gave a lot of money to political candidates, you know, and when it came time for me, not asking for a favor, I just want you to know that right now, because I always say this, I just asked for a phone call back because I just wanted guidance. As a city council member, you give business owners, you give people in the community, you give them guidance sometimes. You just say, hey, you know what, let me put you in contact with this person. You're matchmaking all the time. You're getting things done. And the fact that I couldn't even get a phone call back from someone I donated campaign contributions to, and I lived in their district, to me was a red flag and a reason why I decided I wanted to run. And I asked other people, you know, and then when I got elected, people had emailed me in my, you know, probably my first 6 months of being elected, and people were like, man, I've never had a council member return my phone call. I've never had a council member do this or that. So I just want to say that, you know, once again, all politics are local. And it's important that you have relationships with those that are there to represent you, because at the end of the day, I know that there are people that will say elected officials, they're our leaders. No, they're not your leaders. And it's just, they're not your leaders. We are your representatives. And anybody who's saying that they're your leader, you should be really looking about, you know, how am I gonna get this person out of office? And if you ever hear Tyrone says, I'm these people's leader, please call me and check me and say, man, I was there when you said you were their representative, because I mean, it would be my time to bow out then. So at the end of the day, we are your representatives, and it's important that we hear from each and every one of you. So I just had to tell that a little bit about, you know, how expensive these elections are. And now the state has made these elections even more expensive. But that shouldn't be a reason not to run. That just means it's maybe be a little harder, but it's not a reason not to run.
And what I want to touch on next is the work-life balance. You both mentioned that, you know, this is a part-time or not even a part-time position that you're holding, but I know both of you also are actively on other boards and commissions. So could you speak on that balance that you guys have? Councilman Allen, can you start off? The responsibility time that it may take for any of our participants that are curious about entering politics or may know someone that they want to suggest should run for politics. What would the work-life balance be like?
Difficult. You know, when I'm a widower, and my wife passed away is now 11 and a half years ago. And I think it was my wife that really helped keep me balanced. I think the family really is a cornerstone for having a balance in life. Right now, it's just me, so I'm a workaholic anyway. So my balance is the love I have for what I'm doing right now. But you know, back then when I ran the first time, I still had my son was still at home, getting ready to head off to college. My wife, and we were kind of a team. We were all a team when it came to running for office and being involved. It's important that if you're going to do this, and I'll say this with all my heart, you have to have your family committing with you. The family has to be a part of what you're doing, and they have to understand that you're really dedicating a new lifestyle to the family when you do this, because it does take a lot of time. there's a lot of functions that you do want your family members to attend with you. But from my perspective, I think family, when my wife was here, the family always came first, because that's your foundation for everything you do. The love of what I do comes first now because it's just me. But family is important. And for me, the balance that I maintain here is I love working at the police academy. That's a fun thing to do. Keeping fit and exercising. I use the Peloton. I have my Peloton that I use and to work out so I can stay active. But I think the balance comes from loving what you're doing, and I genuinely love what I'm doing. I like participating on the different boards. I love Cal Poly. Anything that Cal Poly is involved in, I try to make every effort to help. But I love my work, and I think that it's kind of a thing to say, but the love of what I do is the balance that I bring to myself. Faith, the faith I have is a major part of my life, and that brings balance to me as well. So I think that particularly in the world we're living in now with the pandemic and civil unrest and all of the things that are going on with the election, moving forward and being there to help the people you work with and helping these young cadets that are in the police academy. They graduate in a couple of weeks. To me, right now, that's the most important thing for me right now. So.
And same question to Vice Mayor Tyrone Hampton. I know you have a little one, so you have a lot going on, and you're also a business owner. What's that work-life balance like?
So the work-life balance is it's interesting, and I do also, as Councilman Rowland mentioned, my faith and believing in my belief in Christ and just my faith is one thing that keeps me grounded, and also I write lists of things that I say I never want to become. This is what, then I talk to my own work staff, my family, of course my wife first. I talk to my wife about these things first, and I say, if you see me leaning this way, pull me back. If I keep on going, just let me know it's time for me to pull the trigger, and I'm done. I'm definitely done with this. But I definitely have a passion for this. I really enjoy it. I wake up every day, and every day is a brand new day, and it's a new challenge. And that is really cool. My own work, I have on both sides, like my wife, just here in the structure of my household. I mean, I literally couldn't do this without my wife and her support, because she was the first person to say, you should definitely do this. And now I have a child, and she's 6 years old, and she runs the household, really. I mean, I would say she's raising me. I'm not raising her. But I would say between both of them, and then my work, I have a fantastic, as I said, I have a fantastic home team, and I've got a fantastic boss at the age of 6. I mean, she's chairman of the board and the CEO. She's got it all going on, right? And then at my own work, I have a fantastic team. My team knows what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and we coordinate our schedules, and so I work, and I'm still able to do the work that I need to do as a city council member. As a city council member, I have a fantastic colleague in Kushan Bell, who is the field liaison for my district. So she does a lot of the day-to-day work. But as I'm known as council member auditor, because when I send out an email and someone says, hey, we got that done, I'm going to roll up to see if it got taken care of. I'm going to follow back up on that email to make sure that resident was taken care of. And I do that me personally. So, but I do have really blessed that I have really good teams and really good support. So if you get into politics, if you get into local government, just make sure that you pick the right people around you. And this is something I speak to high school students all the time, but this is something that just transcends to all adults, right? It's surround yourself with really, really good people. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. I do it all the time. I'm not the smartest person in the room. And the people that I surround myself, they are iron and they keep me sharp. And so it is important that you surround yourself with good people. It's important that you surround yourself with people who believe in you and believe that you can accomplish things and believe that no matter what, the positive outcome is going to happen. And even if the positive outcome does not happen, know that when you leave and you go to sleep at night, that you have literally done all you possibly could before you got to run for the president of the United States or something like that to change that big issue. But no, that's a joke. That you have done all you can. And as Councilmember Allen mentioned, we're really a policy-based organization, but as well as, we listen and hear everything that's going on in your neighborhood. And also we get the opportunity to listen and hear about your life. I mean, that's the most, actually, before politics, before just working in commercial business, I had a clothing line, but before that, after the clothing line, I had a residential store. I'm a floor covering contractor by trade. And I had a residential store, and one of the things that was the most impressive to me was that people would allow me to come into their home. This is their sanctuary, and allow me to make it better by installing flooring or whatever else they were asking for, window coverings. And just to be a part of that made me feel good. And I think that's the reason why I just, have the love for the job that I do today, because even when, they call me and they tell me everything that's going on in their neighborhood, they even tell me the things that are going on in their life. And for me to be able to be a piece of some sort of solution or a help for an individual, to me is, I can't measure the happiness I get out of, the individual who calls back and says, I just appreciate you. I mean, there's a level of joy that you receive from that. And it's like no other. It's almost like, I want to say it's definitely not like getting remarried again or having a baby, but it's definitely, third place to that, So I would just say that, surround yourself with really good people and have good systems if you decide to get into this. But my work is really good people around me.
Thank you. You both touched on the importance of money to run your campaigns. You said, Vice Mayor, that you started your first with $1,000. One of the questions that was repeatedly asked when people were registering was, what are some of the ways that you guys have been able to successfully fundraise? What are some of the methods if someone does decide to run to get that capital behind them for a successful campaign run?
Well, I call it dialing for dollars. You start out with your family and friends, and you work your way up to some of the members of the business community, and you give that sales pitch. And as a law enforcement, being in law enforcement all these years, the worst thing for me when I ran, and I ran for the state legislature in 2000, and was to ask people for money. And I know for Tyrone and I, it's an unnatural thing to do. I do not like asking for money for running for office. It's probably one of the most awful things that I do not like about running for office. I'd rather just walk precincts all day than to ask people for money. But the problem is it's a necessity. You cannot be successful as a candidate, particularly in this day and age. Now, what you can do with the money, you can be very frugal in terms of how you plan to spend the money. And just to give you a few ideas, one of the things that didn't happen in 1997 was the digital age. We're in the digital age now, and there's a lot you can do with social media. And I used a lot of social media, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I had a web page, and I know the vice mayor had one, but you got to have a wazoo, not just a run-of-the-mill web page. You got to have a wazoo web page. You have to have a good marketing plan for the utilization of your social media, and you got to have a good mail campaign. And there's ways you can save money. And understand this: it's nice to have. You can get people anytime, and you can just keep raising money. But the thing about a campaign, time is the greatest asset, because you only have a certain amount of time to raise money, get the people, and campaign. So it's extremely important that you have a battle plan. And the plan will include data. You have to have good data regarding voter registration. I mean, that's a mainstay. You're gonna find out if you have if you're running partisan. When you for council, it's not. But in some cities, it's kind of a partisan arena. But if you run party, you're going to have a household that's a pure household, where it's one party. It may be the party you're affiliated with, but you're going to have to get all that data, and then you're going to put together your walk sheets, and those walk sheets are going to tell you who you're going to have your high propensity voters you want to go at. In Covina, we got to go after the high propensity voters, people that have voted in the last 3 or 4 years. You don't want people that haven't voted in 20 years or 10 years. You want to make sure the person's still alive. So you want the most recent data possible. But this is how you save money, by thinking smart. And if you're running in a city like Pasadena, then you might need some consultant assistance, because Tyrone, you have a huge arena of voters compared to Covina. I only have a population of close to 50,000. So what I did is I did what's called targeting. I target the high propensity voters, and I target those folks, and I drop mail pieces, and I knock on their door. I know who they are. I know what party they're affiliated with. And in Covina, I knocked on it. It didn't make any difference whether you were undeclared, Republican, Democrat, Greenpeace, whatever you were. It didn't make me any difference. You got to hit everybody up, and you'd be surprised. People love to see you walk to their door. I can't believe, you mean you're a council member or you're a candidate? You walk to my door, you got to vote. People like seeing you in person. So walking precincts and doing really targeted mail will save you a lot of money. Doing vehicle wraps, putting voting wraps around your car, doing a lot of crazy things with the money that you really don't need to do, that really is not going to gain you any extra votes, is useless. You target your money, use it effectively, use it wisely, and use your time effectively. And the worst thing people don't like doing, they don't like walking precincts. And a lot of these people that are going to lose didn't walk all the precincts. It's important to walk as many precincts as possible, have really dedicated volunteers that are going to get out there. With me, I work during the week, so we hit the community hard on the weekends. And then, of course, phone banking. If you have the dollars, then you want to do phone banking. I suggest you don't do the auto dial, that you actually have a live person calling. But these are just areas of concern that I just want to throw out, that if you're going to run for office, be committed, get some consultant help, raise the money, And above all, walk, if you're running a local elected race, local school board or council, walk the precinct. It's a sure winner if you get out there and walk precincts and target your mail appropriately. You will get a lot of votes that way.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Tyrone Hampton, could you share some of your experiences when it comes to fundraising? What would you suggest?
So I would suggest to ask people for money, because during my campaigns, I didn't do a lot of that. And I would suggest that's probably the only reason I've been outspent 8-1 in all of my campaigns, and outmailed as well. But the difference between, as Councilmember Allen mentioned, is if someone gave me $1,000 and someone gave my opponent $10,000, I'm a business owner, and I would say this: if you gave me $1,000, I could turn that $1,000 into $10,000, because I was going to do my mail the most strategic way. I was going to make my yard signs the most strategic way. And the way I did it was very interesting. My father is a property owner, and one of the properties that he owns, the gentleman there who rents for my dad actually owns a print shop. So I got a non-monetary contribution from him for some of my print services, because printing is very expensive. I did get dinged because my print services were not printed by a union print shop. But union print shops, I have to say, if you don't have a lot of money, you can't just spend your money on at those print shops, because they're really, really expensive, like really expensive. So when you're, that probably lost me a couple of votes, but at the end of the day, I'm here, and it worked out for me. And I was able to get out a comparable amount of mail as my opponent, who, like I said, outspent me 8-1. But one thing I would start off with by calling people, start off by calling your family members. Call your mom, call your dad, call your aunts, your uncles, your sisters, your brothers. Ask everybody to pitch in. Start where you're comfortable. Then start calling your friends. Tell them that you're running, and tell them why you're running, and ask them to pitch in. And you know the friends that you have, that have $1,000. So you start there, or you start actually, the friends that have $1,000. You start at 2. Like, hey, I just need $2,000 for my campaign. Please help a brother out. I'm struggling. I really don't know exactly how that conversation would go, but I would just say, I'm here. Please help me out. I want to help the people in my community out. But one thing about getting money is, as Councilmember Allen alluded to, it's really weird asking for people for money, especially if you're a business owner, because I'm always used to working for my money, right? I'm never used to someone just handing me a check and saying, hey, I believe in you. But someone gave me a check and they said, hey, I believe in you. And, I give you a check for $3,000. I believe in you. I believe that you're going to be able to accomplish this. And because they said that to me, I said to them, I said, because I've been just doing a lot of reading, cursory reading, and, trying to look up, like, who are the top politicians in the state of California? And ironically, the two of the top most powerful politicians in the state of California were African American. One being Willie Brown, and the other one being Tom Bradley. And so I would go off of some of their quotes. Okay, it's my daughter; she's trying to pop in the frame. And so I would go off some of their quotes, and one quote that was really interesting, Willie Brown, and I still think about this to today, was like, when the person wrote me a check and they said, I believe in you. And I said, cool. That means you believe in me. And I will if you call me, I'm going to answer your phone call. If you need guidance, I'm going to give you guidance. But if you ask me to vote a certain way, I'm not going to do that, because I'm not for sale. And Willie Brown put it best. And very, in a very Willie Brown fashion, I will make it PG, because there are probably some young people listening to this right now. He said, if you can't take money from someone and then disappoint them, and then turn around and disappoint them, but this is definitely not what he said, and not do what they're asking you to do, then you in the wrong business. So you have to believe in yourself, and anytime anybody gives you campaign contributions, you have to let them know that's because you believe in me and you believe that I'm going to do right for the district that I represent. So every time someone gives me a check, I always start off with that, right? You're donating to my campaign, and it's because you believe in me. And not for what I'm going to do for you, but what I'm going to do for the people that live in my district. So start off with your family, and then go to your friends, and then as Councilmember Allen said, start off with some of the businesses, especially the businesses that you patronize a lot, and then go deeper than that. Look at, actually the best thing to do is look at who is contributing to a lot of people's campaigns, because people that contribute to campaigns, you will notice a pattern that these people typically contribute to campaigns, everybody's campaign on the city council, or they'll contribute to one person and then maybe they contribute to another person on the city council, and look for those people and say, hey, I noticed that you're contributing people on the city council, and here goes my platform and what I'm going to do for this city. It sounds like you have a lot of belief and faith in people that are going to do right by the city. So would you be willing to donate to my campaign? Those are people that you want, that's the third level of people that you want to talk to. If you've talked to your friends in the businesses that you patronize, you want to look up people that have a track record of donating to campaigns, and then just reaching out to them. So Hope Nation is.
Absolutely.
I wish I would have taken all those steps. Both times I ran, I've learned that now. But yeah, so hopefully that information was helpful.
So we're coming up on 10 minutes left on the program. So what I want to do is get each speaker an opportunity to just share some words of encouragement to motivate the participants if they are on the fence of running. Or if you're a participant and you know someone that fits these attributes that could possibly run, and you want to kind of encourage them. So I just want to give you guys both time. So we'll start with Councilmember Allen.
Well, as I said earlier, I will say this has been an extremely rewarding thing to do over the past 22 years that I've served on the council. I think it's very important because I've seen a lot of people that are local elected officials and state elected officials that are, how shall I say, might be what I would call ego driven. And I see myself as kind of like a citizen soldier as an elected official. I think one of the most important things to maintain as an elected official is the highest degree of honesty and integrity. Don't make any promises that you can't keep. And when you're an elected official, if you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. And so you just can't talk the talk. You got to actually walk the walk and demonstrate that you have the highest degree of integrity. And that's number one. Number two, if you decide to run for office, when you do it, you have to be all in. You just can't say, I'm just going to see how this works out. Jump in with both feet and then and fight for victory. I gave a lot of little pointers that I had listed here. Use your money wisely. There are a lot of different aspects to campaigning. I would suggest that if you're interested in it, there are a lot of really good consultants out there for both state and local races. And I would do a little bit of research, ask around some of the local elected officials talking to your local elected official, someone that you can trust, that you may know. They're the best form of giving you some really honest advice in terms of some of the pitfalls associated with running for a local office. I talked about the importance of direct mail, the new digital world we're living in, using social media, having a good social media website, dialing for dollars, starting with your friends, your family, and then working your way up to some of the businesses and people you can trust, that you're not going to be beholden to. You don't ever want to be beholden to anyone that gives you money. As the vice mayor had talked about, when someone gives me a check, they have an understanding that you're supporting me because you believe in the integrity that I'm going to bring to the role as an elected official, and that I'm beholden to the citizens of Covina and not one person. I'm also beholden to really doing all I can to protect the quality of life of the citizens for the citizens that live in the city. This is adults and children. 70% of running for office is to have a good plan of action and to really plan things out and do it well ahead of the time before you draw papers. Don't wait until you draw papers that you decide to run. You should be planning on how you're going to raise money and what's involved strategically in terms of running for office, getting yourself a good treasurer, because things are so complex than when I first ran in 1997, to keep you out of trouble with the FPPC. And above all, learning all the rules of what you can do and you cannot do as a candidate. And remember, it's not the signs that you see on lawns, it's the mail that you deliver and the doors that you knock on that really, at a local elected in a city like Covina, or the districts like in Pasadena, it's the door knocking that's really going to help you. And with that, you're doing this for the people, not for yourself. So that's my advice.
My advice to everyone who is even thinking about running, number one, whatever your belief is, stay true to that. Have someone there that's going to ground you. Have a fantastic support system, as I alluded to earlier. Unlike Councilmember Allen, I didn't have anyone telling me exactly how to exactly run, but I had a belief, and I like people. Number one, hey, you should definitely like people. If you don't like people, do not run for political office at all. If you don't like people, don't do it. I'll just tell you that right now, because you're going to meet a lot of people and a lot of interesting people.
Very true.
So if you don't do it. But I wish I did have, or was maybe a little more civically engaged in that way. But just being a business owner, I understand, accounting. I have accountants. I understood some just basic things and basic principles. And one of the basic principles is customer service 101, returning someone's phone call. Whatever you say you're going to do, you have to follow up on it, and you have to follow up on it and turn over every stone, so that whoever you've said that you were going to do something for, if you were not able to accomplish that, they see your work and they see that you had tried literally everything you possibly can, so that you don't disappoint, and you don't disappoint yourself, because you want to do the best that you possibly can. And so I would say that if you're thinking about running, because, I will say this, like Councilmember Allen had mentioned, and I'm not trying to, be contrary to what he has to say, but I know that sometimes looking at all of the paperwork and everything that you have to go through to run, it could be very, very daunting, and it can be discouraging to some who want to run. So for me personally, I was this student. Let me tell you this. I was a student at Cal Poly Pomona that when they said your report is done by the 17th, but you could turn it in any day, I was turning mine in on the 17th. So I was that student in high school too, though. But when it came to business, I definitely was. And it was like, let's get it done as fast as we can, because the faster we get done, the more we make. But so I would say that I know that some of that paperwork and some of that information can be very daunting and discourage you from running. If you have a passion for people and you want to make a change, get involved. If you want to get involved by running, then run. go for it, shoot for it. If it is your time, it is your time, and it's going to happen. Like I said, I have ran in elections that I have been outspent 8-1. My first election, I ran for school board. Had no educational background in school districts. I ran with a teacher. I ran with an attorney. And I was just a local business owner. My second election, running for city office after running for school board, parents asked me to run for city council. I was on my school board for 2 years. I ran for city council, and I was thinking I was actually going to run with an incumbent. The incumbent decided to not run for the seat and to move on and run for mayor at the time, which was cool because it opened up the seat. But when it opened up the seat, I got faced with people that were professors at USC, people that have been extremely involved in the community, and the person who's everybody said guaranteed to win, and Tyrone is never going to make it to the runoff. He's just not going to do it. I ran with someone who was the fire chief of the city of Pasadena. He happened to be African-American fire chief. So I will just say that if you believe in yourself and you're willing to put the work in and put the hard work in, and you have a love for people and you want to make change, positive change in your neighborhood, and you want to perform customer service with people and let people know that their city cares about them and they believe, then you run for it. You jump in. You don't wait for anybody's approval. You don't wait for anybody to tell you it's your time to run. Listen to divine intervention, though. Listen. Make sure that the stars are aligned. Or for me, it was divine intervention. But there were a lot of people that said, Tyrone, no, don't do that. And people that I trusted and people that I had a lot of respect for, don't do that. Get on the commission first. You got to be involved in the community first. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, I've been involved in this community. I'm born and raised here. I'm opened up a business here. Bought a house here. Bought property here. So I am involved in this community. I have just as much at stake than anyone who was telling me that I should not run. And a lot of people will tell you what not to do because it is their fears. And don't let anybody else's fear stop what you want to do with your life. So with that being said, God bless each and every one of you. I don't see your faces. I'm actually looking at myself, which is kind of weird to be talking at a Zoom if I feel like I'm talking to myself. God bless you. And I close out all my meetings because I mean this, and I mean this truly from my heart. I may not know you, but you're more than welcome to reach out to me if I can give any advice, any guidance, or just any help. If you live in a different city, you're just like, hey, I don't really understand what's going on. Feel free. We all went to Cal Poly together. So this is an alumni association. So I know that we all went to Cal Poly to Pomona together. So we're all Broncos. And I love each and every one of you. So God bless and have a great night.
Ditto.
I want to thank Vice Mayor Ham for joining us tonight. I want to thank Council Member Allen for joining us. The Vice Mayor mentioned that commissions, so I just want to share a link of the state commissions if you are looking for different opportunities in the political sphere or government sphere. There are state commissions, and those are the links to the applications. If you go to those websites, you'll also see a list of open seats. Don't be scared to apply for any commission. You have to be a professional dentist to be on the dental board. You don't have to be a physical to do want citizens that are outside of that field to also be on those boards. And those are a great opportunity to get your feet wet. Also check your county website, commission appointments. These commissions allow you to do research. Sometimes they're disciplinary, depends. You will get that information. Also, your city has commissions, and you can check the website and get further information on that if you want to participate, but at a different level. Also, it was mentioned about mentoring and reaching out. If you want to reach out to myself about more information on commissions, or if you want to reach out to Council Member Allen, you can reach out to us at the Cal Poly Pomona Bronco Mentoring Network. There's about 750 alumni on there, It's a great way to meet other alumni. I've used it myself to network and meet people that I didn't necessarily go to school with at the time. But like Vice Mayor said, we're all alumni and we're all trying to help each other. So take advantage of that link in the box. Register if you don't already have an account and get to know some people. That's why we actually are on there. So I haven't got a no yet, so you shouldn't get a no either. You'll be able to click on that people to organize a 15-minute call or just, have questions on the email and they can reply to that. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to connect. And if you have further questions, you can reach us.
I want to say, Corey, thank you for the great moderation of this event, and to Andrea and Melissa, thank you guys. This was great. Vice Mayor, it was a pleasure seeing you again, and you're doing a great job in Pasadena. This has been a lot of fun. So I appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Councilmember Allen, it is a fantasy. We can't see each other all in one space right now. This is virtual. I'm loving each and every moment of it. I do want to say thank you to Cal Poly Pomona for remembering that I was an alumni. So thank you so much. And you were a fantastic moderator. If there's anything I can do to be of service or help, don't ever hesitate to reach out. God bless everybody, and have a great day, great night. Enjoy that presidential election and try to get the recap of it, because it should be a hot.
Everybody stay safe. Thank you for joining us tonight. Go to the site. We have some more upcoming events coming up as well. So check Cal Poly Alumni's page. All the events are there. All right. Bye.
Take care, you guys. Thank